Hey, I'm Kristine Weber. Welcome to my weekly live stream. Today, I want to chat with you about kicking some asana. I can't tell you how long and how many times I've heard in my nearly 30 years of teaching. Yeah, I'm getting close. I'm 28 and a half years teaching. Uh, how many times I've heard people say, "Oh, you're the gentle yoga teacher," or "You're the beginner yoga teacher." And I used to get offended, and now I don't get offended anymore. I'm just like, whatever, you can think whatever. But if you're interested in studying with me, then let me show you how to kick some asana, because the problem with fitness-based yoga, and there's a lot of benefits to it, but the problem with this really fitnessy yoga stuff is that you're flinging your body around, and inevitably there are going to be injuries. And you just, maybe not inevitably, but a high percentage of chance that you're going to have injuries, right? So people say, "Oh, I want to do the dancing kind of vinyasa because it feels the flow. I feel the flow. It feels so good." And okay, great, but dancers get injured. Just remember that. So the way that I look at yoga is like, hey, if you get injured dancing or doing vinyasa, I can help you. you know? But that doesn't mean that what I teach, that doesn't mean subtle yoga is a beginner yoga practice or a gentle yoga practice. It's subtle, and that's different than gentle, and it's different than beginner. And one of the things we know about yoga, most people know about yoga, is that it's breath centric, right? So you see people teaching vinyasa all the time, and it's inhale, arms up, and exhale into a forward bend, and inhale, take your right foot back, or whatever. It's that kind of. There's always a breath instruction, right? So that means the breath is essential to yoga. What if you could manipulate that breath? Because the breath is the main line into your autonomic nervous system. So when you know how to use the breath, you know how to shift the autonomic nervous system. And if you're looking for something that's more like energizing, what would be called in the Krishnamacharya tradition, Brahmana, right? If you're looking for something that's energizing, that's Brahmana, you can do that without risking without injury risk to yourself. Let me show you an example, and you're welcome to do it with me. Hey, and let's do something really simple. Let's do standing on one leg, taking the back leg behind you. And that might look like warrior three. You might go all the way into a warrior three, or you might just be holding the foot up if you don't feel warm enough to do that. Okay. Now that you're in that pose, check out your breath. What's it doing? I I'm most likely, I'm pretty sure that your breath is going like, and doing all sorts of things. Like your inhale's a little longer sometimes than your right now. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Inhale to 5 counts and exhale to 5 counts. And use some ujjayi. Inhale to 6 counts and exhale to 6 counts. What do you think? Can you do that? Could you do that for 5 more breaths? Now let's do the other side, because otherwise you're left imbalanced. So same thing. I don't care if you're doing a full warrior three, you can just be balancing on the foot. But start to experiment with the breath. Really fill yourself for 5 counts. And then exhaling for 5 or 6 counts. That kind of work is where we really start getting into the autonomic nervous system in a very different way than, here, hold this for 5 breaths. Like, what does that mean? Even, yeah, 5 breaths could look like anything for anyone. But when you put a count to the breath, now you're asking for some real work from the nervous system. And you start to do that with different poses. And by the way, I do not recommend doing that with every single pose in a class, because it's too much. It'll blow your gaskets of the nervous system. So don't do it with every class, with every pose. But when you start adding that sort of stuff to the practice, I mean, can you feel, if you did that with me, can you feel the Brahmana? You feel that uplifting energy right now? That's how you kick ass in, or kick asana, as I like to say, in a safe way, in a sustainable way, in a way that people can be doing it into their 60s, 70s, and 80s. They don't have to quit yoga. Do you know how many people quit because they get injured? I've heard statistics as high as 50%. That is not good for the profession, right? But when you start working with the breath, then you can use super simple poses, but make those poses much more uplifting for the people that are really desperate, for that kind of push. And my hope is that that kind of practice over some time starts to open people up to the possibility that they could be doing other things with their nervous system in yoga practice. Because let's face it, those of you who live in the West, particularly in the United States, we live in cultures that are highly nervous system, sympathetic nervous system activated, that are highly stressed, that are dealing with all sorts of chronic health problems. 6 out of 10 Americans have one chronic illness, and 4 out of 10 have two or more. So we live in these cultures where the stress and the pressure is intense. And then people go, oh, I need to work out harder. I was in New York last weekend and I was just like, I can't believe these people I was in Central Park. Like, there's so many people on Sunday out here just exercising so hard. And I'm like, their lives are so hard. It's not that there's anything wrong with exercise. I hope people exercise. But if you're not balancing that with something that helps you to go the parasympathetic direction, that actually is giving the body time to heal and rejuvenate, then you're going to spill over into some kind of a dysregulation of the nervous system, which often leads to some kind of chronic health problem. So that's why this stuff is so important. But sometimes people are not ready for it. They've heard for so many years, since 1969. I say this all the time. When Dr. Kenneth Cooper came out with his book, The Aerobics Revolution, I think it was just called Aerobics. The Aerobics Revolution started, and we have so many messages for more than 50 years that say exercise is so important. There's nothing wrong with those messages. It is important. But the messages we don't take to heart as much are those messages of how to train the nervous system. And you do not train the nervous system with Netflix and wine. That is not how you train it. You have to train the nervous system through slow, mindful movement practices, the relaxation practices, all of that stuff that we have a ton of literature on. It came from the Henry Benson Institute. It's like, and many other places, there's tons of literature on it, but we do not have strategy. We do not have a coordinated strategy in our culture for helping people learn how to regulate the nervous system. We tell them to exercise, but we don't tell them what to do on the other end of it. So anyway, I hope this is helpful. Like, it is important to know, especially if you're a yoga teacher, really important to know how to kick some asana so that you can tell people, hey, this is not just gentle yoga. Like, I can help you work with that aspect of the nervous system if you want. And that oftentimes will make people, will give people the buy-in to say, oh, maybe there's something here for me that I can explore that will help me to regulate my nervous system and do the other half of the work that I need to do. It's not the same thing as doing 2 minutes of shavasana after sweating for an hour, right? It's a different approach. Thank you so much for being here. Please leave a comment. I'd love to know where you're coming from. And also just anything you want to share about what I just talked about. And the other thing I'd love to hear is what other videos you'd like to see from me. I do weekly videos, live videos every Wednesday. Lots of love. Have a great week. I'll see you next week.